I had anterograde amnesia. So what does that mean? It means I couldn't form new memories. So the odds of my even being alive were less than 8%. The odds of my long term being physically, mentally okay, less than 1%.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment. As usual, it is my custom to welcome our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things very expensive in my eyes, their time. 24 hours has been offered to every man and woman on this planet. What we do with that time will say much about you. The other is the journey. The journey is a powerful created. It has created Sig that is before us, actually deposited some stuff in him that we want access to. That is wisdom, insight, all of those things that are resided there in him. We want to have access. Why? So that you and I can become better human spirits while we're here on this planet. Sig, welcome to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
Thanks. Fantastic to be here with you today, Ken.
It's an honor, man. As I mentioned to you that I love throwing this question to everyone that shows up. And my question to you, because I believe that on the journey, we have two aspects, if you will. The first is introduction to self. We get a chance to learn who we are. And then there's the other part of that journey is where we become servants. And my question to you is this: how do you serve mankind?
Yeah. So, sometimes we find the answer in different ways as to why we're here and how we serve mankind. And for me, it took, and I know we'll get into this, a horrible, life-threatening event for me to figure out my mission and why I'm here. And when you actually die and are given a second chance, you have a lot of time to ask, why am I still here? And so for me, and I won't give it away now, we'll get into it. But for me, having that second chance means I'm here to help others be the world's best version of themselves. Pretty simply, I believe within each of us, Ken, is the power, capacity, and talents to be the world's best version of ourselves. But there's a whole bunch of barriers, including our attitudes, that sometimes stop us from doing that. So I'm here through speaking and coaching and mentoring and consulting to help others be the world's best version of themselves and to spread that word.
Yeah, I think exploration of our trauma, fearfulness, which keeps us from that exploration, if you will, is one of those hindrances that we must overcome in order for us to kind of get into the fullness of why we are here. Because we are all given birth through trauma, if you will. So one of our customs again here is to go back. We like to go back in the beginnings of our beginnings, if you will, I call it. And that is where we reside for a few years. And that is the family. Our family is going to teach us a couple of things that will cause you and I to look and see the world a certain way. We are going to learn about communication skills, all the different things we are going to acquire here. What was your family unit like?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question because I think of family in a lot of different ways. I had my mom and dad and two brothers and sister that I grew up with. And my father was an immigrant from Panama. He came here when he was, I think, around 9, 10 years old. His father had died. His mother brought them to Los Angeles from Panama. And I knew her, blessed to know her, but she never spoke English. That was not her native language. My father worked very, very hard and believed in the land of opportunity, in the United States. He worked hard and wound up becoming a physician at the Mayo Clinic, which is where he met my mother, who I don't think had left Minnesota ever at the time. So he had this Panamanian and Minnesota come together, both of really deep faith. I was raised Catholic. We wouldn't miss a Sunday or Saturday night going to church. And my father and mother helped us with the foundation of believing in ourselves and working hard. If you worked hard, you could achieve anything you wanted to in life and have a good faith and help others. And I think that's pretty simple, but that's how I was raised. And family is interesting. So that was my nuclear family I was born into. And then, I did get married and had a couple of boys. It becomes a second family. And what do you pass on and what's the legacy? And as I look at my journey, you think of family, like I said, in a lot of different ways. I have a group of guys that I started working with in 1995 at General Mills. I consider them family as well in a different way. They were there on the day that I died, and I wouldn't be here alive if it wasn't for those guys. We were there for the births of our children, for the baptisms of our children, for celebrating baby showers as guys together, And then I also have a group of guys that I grew up with in Rochester for now 40 years. Every year, there's 7 of us to get together and go up to northern Minnesota for about a 4 or 5 day weekend. You can say anything, talk about anything, ask for any support. And I have one friend who says, I'll give you a lung, man. And you just think about that. Someone giving someone a lung, that's family too.
Yeah.
And so I'm super blessed to have these multiple orbits of people in different ways that I consider my family.
I think that is awesome. That's how I believe, as far as I have some friends that I consider family. And those
Yeah.
of us that are lucky to have those, it's something else in this life because, not many people have it. Here you gain from your foundation, if you will, with your family. You have your religious belief, you have the hard work, you have all of these different aspects of you being deposited in you by your core family, meaning mom and dad and your siblings as well around you. How did this begin to impact you? How did you relate to others as a result of having all of this good foundation, if you will?
Yeah. So I have always worked hard. I've always believed in helping others and serving others. I grew up swimming. My dad wouldn't let me play hockey or football. He felt like they were too violent. And I think he knew that concussions might be a problem before, the world today knows concussions are a problem. So I swam. And swimming was wonderful because it
Yeah,
taught you about hard work and reinforced that. It taught you about team. I think athletics do in general teach you how to be a good teammate, how to work together, how to help others. And I was an All American swimmer,
yeah,
swam in college, D1 athlete. So that was part of how it all came together for me in terms of being a leader, in terms of serving
yeah,
others, in terms of just trying to live your best life, just trying to live
yeah.
your best life.
I tell people the arts, what I've learned is that those that are exposed to the arts and those that are exposed to sports, they gain some certain aspect of training in the mind and activating certain tools that we utilize later on in our awakening, that time when we are awakened to the fact that we have been living to this on this program, the default program, if you will. And those things, especially in the arts, is your imagination, which is a powerful tool that one uses when one begins to walk and learn about personal development. The other, in sports, we have learned to push the body beyond the limit. We have learned to that the mind can do additional things that can bring the body in line with. And many of those that are not in sport will not understand that because
Yeah.
they haven't been a part of them. In swimming, that is a part where you're pushing that body beyond, and that is a mind thing. As you're going to college, what field of study did you pick, and why did you pick it?
Yeah, interesting. So I chose engineering. And so this is, the mid 80s. So if
Yeah,
people are of that age, you probably remember the Bionic Man on TV, Steve Austin, right? Pretty
I love that
cool.
show.
Had the bionic eye, the bionic arm and legs. I thought I wanted to be a biomedical engineer. I grew up in this town where the Mayo Clinic was, and we had
Yeah,
Boy Scouts, but we also had what was called Mayo Medical Explorers.
yeah,
And think of that as Boy Scouts for people that might enter the healthcare field. Similar idea. And it was boys and girls both. And so
yeah.
when I went to college, I said, I want to be a biomedical engineer. I'm going to help build and make the bionic man a reality. And there were, at that time, maybe 8 programs in the whole country that had biomedical engineering. So I started as a biomedical engineer. And what I learned my first year was to pivot because the path at that point for a biomedical engineer was either to get a PhD, and this is my first year of college, I'm learning
Yeah.
this, to get a PhD or become a doctor. And I knew I didn't want to do either of those things.
Hmm.
So I took a step back and said, well, I do like analytical things. I do like engineering. And I finally landed on industrial engineering. That was a major.
As an industrial engineer, while being there, talk to us a little about life. How is this young man going through life as he is exploring and chasing his dream? Because our goal as we are moving through, and I call it that linear lie that they've been telling us, that program. Life is supposed to move so sweet, You get out of
Mm,
college, you meet your wife, you did that girl, you get married, you go to work, you get your degree, you have the white picket fence and all that stuff. And then, you're lucky you get some vacation, Sig, and then, you live happily ever after and then you die. That's the linear program that they feed us, which is
yeah.
absolutely a lie. It has nothing to do with the truth, if you will. So how was this young man doing after he is in school and made his choice as to where he is going with his
Yeah. It,
profession?
interesting. So I think life is lumpy and it's not linear, to your point. Absolutely. I have reinvented myself probably a dozen times in terms of my career, in terms of my focus as a business person, continually. And I think embracing change is an important part of life and being able to, I guess, roll with the punches and be flexible and try and deal with what life throws your way. So I've been super blessed in my life. I've been a marketer at companies like General Mills. I started my career with what used to be the Big Eight accounting firms with Arthur Andersen, what's now Accenture, doing IT computer coding and strategy
Yeah.
work. I've worked at medical device companies, a company called Survival Link, which is one of the companies that pioneered automated external defibrillators.
Oh.
We were the first to put defibrillators in airplanes, in police cars, in gyms. Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I worked in financial services and banking. My faith, I raised my kids with Catholic faith, but that hasn't been a straight line either. There's
Yeah.
times of greater engagement, less engagement, not being real super connected, and then coming back to your faith. So life is not linear. And I think I've been blessed that I was raised in a way where I was taught to embrace change, be flexible, and take everything in. And there's always
Yeah.
good. There's always good. You just have to sometimes look for it harder than others.
Yeah, they haven't, in their rosiness of telling us about life, what I'm getting to is that they never tell us about those periods of sicknesses and disease, those periods of losing a job, those periods of broken relationships, those periods, and how we manage that and
Yeah.
how we deal with that, our outlook on that makes a difference as to how fast we recover, number one, and how what projection of life we take. As this young man, you said you had your foundation of religion and all of those aspects, the hard work. And at what point in your life, Sig, did you ever begin to look at the other aspect of the individual? Because the Bible tells us that we are much more than just the body, that we are, it talks about us being a soul, it talks about the spirit and all these different things. Psychologists will call that individual the subconscious mind. And so here you are dealing with the medical field and dealing with all these different fields that are basically talking about some of the most important aspect of human existence, if you will, when you look into the minutiae of some of the things that you were studying and so forth. As you are moving through at any point, and I know you had your religious background, did you begin to look at the internal aspect of yourself and began to ask questions?
Yes. I had a pretty profound event 31 weeks ago now. And, for your listeners, we can reinvent ourselves and find our mission at any point in life. For
Yeah.
me, it took dying. I had a sudden cardiac arrest August 23rd, 2024, 31 weeks ago and 3 days. I will forever know the number of weeks since that date. I was golfing during the day with my friends from General Mills that I met in 1994, 1995. And these were the guys who, you know, I was the first person at the hospital for the birth of one of the guy's two children. We had the baby showers on the boat on Lake Minnetonka for the guys. We watched our kids grow up together. They were the people there on August 23rd when I had my cardiac arrest. I spent the day golfing with them. Half of them live out of town. Half of them live locally. Half are retired. Had a great day golfing. I decided, although there was a defibrillator at the golf course, bad place to have a cardiac arrest. So I had a choice. I waited for that evening. We were at a barbecue, same group of people, now with, other people there, significant others, etc. And I was sitting in an outdoor bar by a pool at my friend's house and had my cardiac arrest. I was dead for more than 8 minutes, flatline, before I was resuscitated. My friend whose house it was wound up giving me CPR with his wife. He gave me the mouth to mouth. She gave me the chest compressions. And kind of a funny aside, and there's a lot I don't remember for 3 days of my life after that
Yeah.
cardiac arrest. So I've heard the stories from friends and family that were there. And while she's giving me the chest compressions, if anyone has ever learned CPR, the right beat is 100 to 120 chest compressions per minute. And so she was singing, and I love this part of it, the song from the Bee Gees, Staying Alive, while she's giving me the chest compressions, which if you know the words, and I'm not a singer, but it's, whether you're a brother, whether you're a mother, you're staying alive.
I
And
love that.
in this horrible thing that just happened, I love the optimism that that conveys, and I don't think that was her intent. It was more, I got to do the right rhythm for this guy to
Yeah.
make sure he lives. First responders showed up and did a whole bunch of stuff to me, but the biggest thing was they used the defibrillator. And remember, I had worked at the
Uh-huh.
company that pioneered automated external defibrillators 25 years before, and it was a defibrillator that restarted my heart and
Wow.
saved my life.
And that's
Yeah,
something, the irony of things,
yeah,
the synchronicity. I always tell people there is a synchronicity to life. We just
yeah.
need to pay attention sometimes, and but there is a rhythm to it that correlates to all of us. Talk to us about that time, because this is an important aspect. And I want those that are listening to us, I want you guys to really, I always invite them, say, to transition from listening to begin to become a hearer of what the individual says, because it's in the hearing that you
Mhm.
receive the revelation. Talk to us about your process, the timeline, and what goes on, and what happened after you came out of that.
Yeah. So my good friends, a couple of them went to the hospital with me, and everything I'm gonna tell you for a few minutes here, I don't remember. It was told me by others.
Yeah.
I got to the hospital, I had anterograde amnesia. So what does that mean? It means I couldn't form new memories. So the odds of my even being alive were less than 8%. The odds of my long term being physically, mentally okay, less than 1%. So
Right.
my family and friends for almost 3 days were very worried because I couldn't remember anything. So Ken, if you were my phlebotomist, you'd come in the room to draw my blood. You were drawing my blood every hour for 2 days. And I would say, "Hi, what's your name?"
Wow.
You'd say, "Ken." And I would say, "Ken, you're the world's best. You draw
Wow.
my blood. You were very, very good at drawing my blood because I would tell you 5 more times, you're the world's best." And I had no idea I was saying this. I would say it to the doctor. I would say it to my sister, friends, anyone who came in, the nurse, the janitor. I would say, "You are the world's best." I broke 3 ribs from the CPR, which is
Yeah.
great because that means you're probably doing CPR right. So 3 broken ribs is okay. And it was like being stabbed in the chest every time I would take a breath. And someone came in, a volunteer, with these heart shaped pillows. Imagine a pillow from your bed being shaped like a heart.
Yeah.
And they gave it to me and they said, "Now hug this pillow." And you would press it against your ribs and it would make it easier to breathe with broken ribs. Well, that was somebody I said, "You're the world's best" to a bunch of times. But again, I had no idea I was saying this. I only know
Wow.
this because my sister and other people were there the whole time and told me this. So as I get through things, and I was in the ICU for a total of 6 days, I'm able to, reflect, why am I still here? Why am I still here? And why the heck did I tell everyone you are the world's best so many
Yeah.
times, right? Where did that come from? And why was I doing it? And I think a couple reasons come to mind. I mean, first, I think my upbringing, with my father and mother, and we talked about that some, and being appreciative and a team person and sharing those. But I think the other reasons are interesting in that first time in my life, I couldn't do anything for myself. I was this athlete. I was a team leader, motivating my teams, inspiring them, getting us to the finish line, and not always successful. But
Uh-huh.
that was my role as a father too. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't go to the bathroom. I couldn't get out of bed. I had to rely on everyone to help me. And it was my way of saying thank you. So saying you are the world's best to everyone was really a fancy way of saying that's fantastic. That's great. I appreciate you. Thank you. I just
Yeah.
said it with the words, you are the world's best. I think the second reason I said it to everyone was, keep in mind, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I have no memory of this, but I knew somewhere in my brain that I was messed up and something really bad had happened. So I became a cheerleader and motivator, I think, for everyone coming in the room. I needed that doctor who was going to put
Uh-huh.
the implantable cardio defibrillator in me to be the world's best doctor. I needed the nurse to be the world's best nurse. And that's within us all. And I
Yeah.
became my own hype man. I was in my stupor. I'm motivating these people to,
Yeah.
you really are the world's best. Give it to me. Be that for me. And out of that, as I reflected, further in the weeks and months after, I came to the conclusion, and there were other things that fed into it too, that I was here to help others be the world's best version of themselves and spread the message of you are the world's best, and help people to realize that potential within themselves and to get
Yeah.
there.
As you're doing that, I mean, it's an incredible story. The fact that that specific phrase was
Yeah.
what you grabbed onto, and you were able to express even though you were in that state. which is a powerful phrase when you think about it, to be uttering to others that are on the outside of you, taking care of you. And it's a powerful thing. When you began to come out of it, say again, you began to make headways in your healing process and stuff like that. What sense did it begin to make to you? The phrase as well, but
Yeah.
also the whole thing. What did it begin to speak to you as an individual?
Yeah, it's pretty terrifying. I didn't know why it had happened. I didn't know if it was gonna happen again. I didn't know. No one really knows, right? Am I gonna live another day? Am I gonna live a week? Could this happen
Yeah.
again? Am I gonna live a year? I just turned 59. My father's 95 and in good
Wow.
health. Maybe I have till I'm 95 left, but I had to come to grips with the anxiety and PTSD
Hmm.
of what I'd been through. And interesting, the threads in life that connect us, right? 2 months before my cardiac arrest, I have a son who lives in Billings, Montana. He's a second year medical student now. I went out to fly fish with him, and he's the expert. I'm total rookie, and he's helping me learn how to do it. He brought his pastor with us fly fishing. And at the time, it was fly fishing, right? That's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And I caught what my son calls the Montana trifecta, which is a Yellowstone cutthroat trout, a rainbow trout, and a brown trout.
Nice.
I think he might have made that up just to make me feel good. I'm not sure. But I did catch all three of those fish, and he named it the Montana trifecta. Well, the pastor with us said, "Hey, guys, have you ever read the book or the podcast 4,000 Weeks?" Nope, never heard of it, don't know anything about it. And I almost in the back of my mind, I'm saying, I'm fly fishing here. Why are we talking about this? I don't want to be preached to. I didn't say that out loud, but, I was
Yeah.
fly fishing. Nope, tell us about it. He told us a little bit about the book. And
Yeah.
basically, I learned that 1,000 weeks is how long the average person has to live when they're
Yeah.
born, right? 80 years, 80 years. So the soup of reflection after my cardiac arrest, when I'm trying to figure out why am I still here? What am I going to do? I had to put a stake in the ground to get over my anxiety and believe I was here for a reason and purpose and mission, and that I was going to be around to do that. So I said, I'm going to live 1,000 weeks. And, that came out of this just random event from
Yeah.
fly fishing on a river in Montana. But that was really important to me because I could say 1,000 weeks is 20 years. I can make a big difference in the world in 20 years. That could be an anchoring, centering point for me. The other interesting thing about it, and I think this could be helpful for anyone in life, I call it the 5% rule. And the 5% rule, if you think about 20 years, every year is 5% of what you have left. So whether that's summers that you enjoy, whether that's 4th of July's, whether that's Christmas, family reunions annually, every one of those 20 is 5%. And that puts it in a different perspective. That's why I know now it's 31 weeks since I died. I have 969 left. Hopefully more. Hopefully I get to 95 like my father, but who knows? But I'm going to act and live my mission
Yeah.
that I'm going to do this for another 20 years. The other part of the 5% rule that I like is 5% of a day. What is 5% of one day? It's 72 minutes. So Ken, you talked about time is precious, and it is
Yeah.
so precious.
It is.
5% of 24 hours, 72 minutes. But you say, well, I sleep some. So what's 5% of when I'm awake? 5% of 14 hours is 42 minutes.
Uh-huh.
So what are we spending our time on? Are we spending our time and investing in the things that are important to us? Family, friends, our careers, whatever your priorities are. Are you spending 5% on it? Some things take effort over time. I'm in the process of writing a book now. I've never written a book. I knew nothing about writing a book, but as part of my journey, I'm writing a book. And so I've committed to myself to spend 5% every day to write that book. And I know that'll get done then. I'm spending 42 to 72 minutes. Some days I'm not perfect and I don't do it. But that's my goal and my milestone. And I know that's an important thing to me and my mission. And it can only be accomplished over a period of months with sustained effort at
Yeah.
5% every day. So,
It's a beautiful explanation. I think uh, people don't break it down in a way by which we are able to see and get some really insight into our time. I know in corporate America where I was trained and programmed that when you have a situation or any kind of problem, you break it down, you bring it into bite-sized pieces whereby you are able to manage it, if you will. And that is great advice also in everything that we do. And when one understands the value of time, and that's one of the things that I always try to get my listeners, Sig, to start thinking about. Many of us don't think about time. We just drift. And then one day we're 40, 50 years in and we're like, what just happened? And we
Yeah.
have a tendency of saying it, especially with the kids, wow, how time flies. But we are not serious about what that means. And I love the fact that how you broke it down and began to segment it in the sense that you are showing people the seriousness of that particular 24 hours and the 5% and all the details as to what that means. As you began to expand yourself and your anxiety, which is something one has to deal with, there are many out there. Sig, if we could stop for just about a couple of seconds and address that aspect of anxiety, because many of people are very anxious, especially in today's world. What is your advice, if you will, to those that are listening about anxiety and how you dealt with it?
Yeah. Um, it's real, and it took this crisis for me to really realize how real it was. I dealt with it in a few ways. I'm a data-driven person, and data is part of how I get over things. And
Yeah.
I'll give the example for me. So I started going to a thing called cardiac physical therapy. And I did that for a while. Insurance covered it. I would go 2, 3 times a week, and they'd hook me up to a 3-lead EKG.
Hmm?
And so I would exercise. And initially it was walking pretty slow, but I was monitored by this EKG that would tell me, and expert medical staff around me saying, yep, your heart is okay. I would have my blood pressure taken before, during, and after working out. Your blood pressure is doing the right things. I would work a little harder each session, and it was all prescribed. How hard can Sig work? And for me, getting that data and real world enforcement, as well as the
Yeah.
medical experts and people that were my support team there saying, hey man, you did this, way to go. Look at you. You're good. It didn't
Yeah.
happen again. And every time I did that, and I still do the cardiac physical therapy today, twice a week, it's another check in the box to say, I worked harder. I felt good. I'm getting stronger. So data for me is an important thing. And we get data a lot of ways reinforced. Sometimes
Oh,
it's
yeah.
quantitative like this, but sometimes it's qualitative, right? The people
Uh-huh.
cheering me on and supporting me. The second thing I think for me, and this is something I think everyone can practice, I think everyone can look for data if that's an important thing for how they respond, qualitative and quantitative. The other thing for me, and this is part of my mission now, is spreading the attitude of gratitude. Everyone has 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts a day, which is incredible when you think about that. 6,000 to 60,000 thoughts. Unfortunately, 80% of those thoughts are negative. Think about that. You're in a hole to start with that 80% of the thoughts you have are negative for most people. 95% of those thoughts are repetitive. You get in this cycle of negative thoughts. And
Programs.
that's the average person. But how do you
Yeah.
break out of that? I think it's the attitude of gratitude. I think it's surrounding yourself with positive people. It's being able to get that reinforcement. It's mentally saying positive things to yourself. And so the attitude of gratitude was born out of my saying you are the world's best.
Yeah.
And what I talk with people about is the idea that how often does someone say to you, Ken, that was great. You're fantastic. I enjoyed that. I appreciate you. And how often do we all say it to others? And it's
Yeah.
not enough. It's
Yeah.
not enough. And if you can reflect on when someone said that to you, or even when you said it to someone else, and the smile that came on their face and how it made you feel to hear that from someone. So I think we all have an opportunity. I now make it a point daily, and I started this habit. It's one thing to have motivation. Motivation comes and goes. It's that lumpy part of life. But I think if we can build habits,
Hmm.
habits get reinforced and become part of who we are. So I wanted to form the habit of telling people you are the world's best. I think I
Yeah.
did
It's,
okay before I died of telling people good job, but not enough, not
yeah.
enough. And so I put a Post-it on my mirror and it said, be the world's best.
Yeah.
So every time I went to my bathroom and shaved, brushed my teeth, whatever it was, I saw this Post-it that said, be the world's best. I knew that was my reminder to go out into the world and tell people in a genuine, honest way, you are the world's best. Those are the words I use, and they're very natural for me now. It,
Mhm.
it works. but it has to be genuine. It has to be sincere. Can't be made up. And we all can say that in different ways. Thank you. That's great. I appreciate you. And I think if you can do that yourself, it elevates your attitude. It elevates your happiness and those around you too. And frankly, elevates your performance as well. So those are a few things for me that I think have
Yeah,
helped.
there's data out there saying that because I remember doing the tests with my sons, when we say things that are positive, it actually affects the cells of our body. And I had my youngest son and my eldest son do an example where I had my eldest son stand in front of his younger brother and was saying negative things. And then I told his younger brother to push his hand down, and I told his brother, make sure your little brother don't move your hand, and kept saying the negative things. And the response is immediate. His little brother was able to push his hand down, and his brother is trying his best to stop that. And then I switched it around, and I told the little brother to say good things, and I told the big brother to push his hands down. He couldn't move it. And I did that to show them the instant effect of words on the human being. To a cellular level, it affects us. So my intention in that was to tell them to be very careful what you say, because you are actually listening to what you're saying. And you talk about the thoughts that people entertain all day long. And I tell people those negative thoughts are programming you. They are depression. They are all the negative things you can think of, hate and all these different things. I mean, we have a list of that, but they are programming you all day long as you are. What are you doing? You're meditating on it. And as you meditate on it, it becomes a part of you. And so what Sig is doing is trying to introduce you guys to that other set, is to say those things, be the world's best. You say it until it resides as part of your being, and it now pops out, and you'll see the changes manifest in your life. I promise you that is, and we've seen this. We had that professor that did the study with water, just putting words at water, and good and bad words at the water, and how it changed the molecule of the water. Guess what? I think they say we're about 80 something percent of water in our bodies or something like that. So that means that we're being affected. So then it is very mindful that one must learn how to speak to ourselves and what you allow to be heard, because once it deposits, then it becomes an issue in your life. Here you are, man. You have been doing this and saying this for a little while and seeing some results in it. Talk to me. I know you're working on the book, because that is a part of the journey. Now you're going to have to go in deeper and dig all those nuggets out and bring it into a format by which those like myself will be anxious to read that and get some additional insight. As you are moving through your life and you begin to exercise the power of that phrase, and that's a powerful thing to be saying under such circumstances. This is what it just gets me all the time. So here you are, man. You're saying, and this thing is now becoming a part of you. As you said, you're creating a habit. Let's talk to those out there for a little while about the importance of the habit and what it does to an individual. Bring us back to that as you begin to purposely design your life and create a habit. How was that journey? And talk to us about the result of that journey and that habit.
Yeah. So, I said earlier, motivation can be fleeting, inspiration can be fleeting, but habits endure and become who we are. So I look back at how I was raised, and I was super blessed that my parents got the idea of habits and swimming. I wasn't Michael Phelps. I was good, but I wasn't Michael Phelps. But I could be the best version of me. And as a swimmer, how do you do that? Well, you have to work out and have the habit of getting up at 5 in the morning. So for, most of my life through college, I'd get up at 5 in the morning and I'd be in a cold pool at 5:30 in the morning. I don't know that that was inspiring or motivating, but it was a habit I built that was necessary to be the world's best version of myself in the pool. And in life, there are triggers for habits, and sometimes it's changing the triggers. So my son got married about 2.5 years ago now, and I wanted to lose weight for his wedding. And we all, make New Year's resolutions and say, I want to lose weight or eat healthier or go to the gym, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then a week or two later, We've stopped. We haven't lost the weight. We stopped going to the gym, whatever it is, hard to stick with it because we have to change the motivation into habits. The motivation's important that I said, hey, I want to look good for all the friends and family that are going to be at my son's wedding. And I want to fit in the tuxedo well, all that. And I want to be there for my grandchildren eventually. So that's the motivating piece. But then it comes to, okay, what's the habit? And it can take the research will say, I think, anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks of sustained effort to change a habit.
Yep.
Whether that's stopping smoking or changing your diet, you got to stick with it. So create triggers. A good example for me is I wanted to work out more and go for a walk after dinner and just exercise more in general. So I had a packed gym bag by the front door. I couldn't get out of my house without walking by the gym bag. I put tennis shoes by the front door. I would have to trip on the tennis shoes or put them on my feet or take them with me. So little reminders about changing the habits. They're triggers that can do new things. I had a friend who was a salesperson in one of the companies I worked for, didn't like his job at all, wasn't motivated, and wanted to do better. So he created a trigger for himself to be a better salesperson. And what he did was, this may sound a little corny, he put 2 pictures up on his desk. One was a picture of his family, his wife and children. And the other picture was a picture of Hawaii. And his whole trigger for him was, I want to be able to take my family to Hawaii next year. And how am I going to do that? By being a better salesperson. And he had a list of 2 or 3 things that meant for him to be the world's best salesperson. So those were his triggers. So there's different ways we can get triggers to help us change habits and break the bonds of the negative attitudes. I can't, I won't, it's too hard, all of those things, and rewire the brain for those new habits.
Yeah, that's the purpose of all of that, is to rewire our brain to create a different outcome. Let me ask you this question, Sig. You have a mic. This mic is plugged into where we're at now. I think it's 8 billion people or maybe more, something around there. And you have this mic and you're able to speak to us. What would you say?
Well, I I'll recap a little bit. You have the power, capacity, and talent within you to be the world's best version of yourself. No one likes it when we show up as crappy Sig or crappy Ken, but it happens. It happens. And if we can elevate our performance and attitudes and spend 5% on the right things and have the gratitude, we can be the world's best version of ourselves. And I would encourage everyone, it's a very personal thing. As part of my book, I've been surveying people and asking them, what does it mean to you to be the world's best version of yourself? I call it a pulse check. Take a pulse check and ask yourself, what does it mean to be the world's best version of me, of myself? And write it down. Write it down. And it's different for everyone. I've gotten about 50, 60 responses so far that'll be part of my book. And then you say, okay, this is what it means to me to be the world's best version of myself. And then ask yourself, this is part of the pulse check too, how are you going to do it? How are you going to accomplish that? And be tangible and be specific. And once you have those 2 things down, take daily or multiple times a day pulse checks. Check in with yourself. And I have people, when they take the pulse check, and people can do this now, shut your eyes, relax, do some deep breathing, put your hand on your heart and just breathe nice and deep. Take a minute to just reflect and calm your spirit. And then ask yourself some of those questions and, be honest, and not just the questions, but spend some time on, what am I going to do differently? How can I be the world's best version of myself? For me, but for my family, for my friends, for my coworkers, loved ones, the things that are important to you in life.
Guys, we're going to leave it there. I'm going to provide Sig's information, all of it, the links and all those things. I know he's working on a couple of things. He has workshops. He has a couple of different things there that he provides for you guys. And I want you guys to get there, because that's an important question that you need to answer. And I want you guys to get in touch with him and help him, give him some of your answers as to be the world's best. How are you going to do that? And he may be able to help you with that, navigate through that. And that's why he's here. And we want to provide everything for you guys to get to him, so that he can help you answer that question. So as he walks you through some of those things that you may be a little confused about, many of you, again, you're so busy working and dealing with the family and all the different things outside of that, that you need someone to walk with you just to help you through. Sig is that individual. And again, we're going to provide everything for you to get access to him. Sig, thank you so much for coming
Yeah.
to Threads of Enlightenment, man.
Thank you, Ken. My website is betheworldsbest.com, and I'm also on LinkedIn, so people can check me out there. And I know you have the links in your show. I want to thank you, Ken, for everything you do with your podcast and for your listeners. You are the world's best.
Thank you so much, and I'll take it. I'll agree with you on that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.